City of Stevens Point Plan Commission meeting, recorded October 4th, 2021.
All right, we're back, and I have 6 o'clock, so I will call the regular meeting of the City Planning Commission to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Weeza.
Here.
Kneebone.
Here.
Arnson.
Here.
Cooper. Here. Haynes.
Here.
Hoppy
Excused.
is excused, and Rice. Here. We have 6.
Okay, item number 2 is to accept the report of the September 7th Plan Commission meeting.
Make a motion to accept it.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Seconded by Cooper. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 3 is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from James Yakush for a conditional use permit to construct 4 duplexes at 3800 Doolittle Drive with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 23.01 Sub 13 Sub F. And let me bring up the PowerPoint to share this. And there we go. Adam?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. So as a commission may recall, back in June of last year, the Plan Commission and the Common Council voted to approve a conditional use permit to construct 4 duplexes on the 3700 Doolittle Drive parcel. This would be the parcel directly to the west of the parcel that's shown. If you go to the next slide, Mayor, you can see the top half of the screen shows the duplexes that were approved last year and have since been constructed. Earlier this summer, the applicant did obtain a building permit to construct a 5th duplex, the first of which is on the subject property. This would be the duplex farthest to the north. Until recently, the applicant has now submitted a building permit application to construct a 6th duplex. That would trigger the conditional use requirement, which says that no more than one primary structure can be located on one zoning lot unless the Plan Commission and Common Council would review and approve via conditional use permit. So, Commission might be familiar with the request as of last year, but one item that I want to stress is that last year when we went through the design review for the proposal, a concerted effort has been made to make sure that the proposed development would co-align with not only the 4 duplexes that were approved, but also the 4 duplexes that are on the subject property. Some examples include the shared driveway connecting the 8 duplexes to Doolittle Drive, a stop sign being required at the end of the shared driveway, infiltration basins and retention ponds, turnaround area in the back for fire EMS traffic. So overall, staff would recommend approval subject to the conditions shown on the agenda packet.
Great. Any clarifying questions from the commissioners before I open up the public hearing? Okay, then I will declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this request is urged to step forward to the lectern, state your name and address for the record. Provide that testimony. Public hearing is still open. See nothing on Zoom. For the 3rd time, the public hearing remains open. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I will declare the public hearing closed. Bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
Can somebody hear me?
Yes. Who is this?
This is Mary Slicer. I live right across the street from these duplexes that are being put up. My question and concern is this going to be college housing or is this going to be for adults? Because the people that are living in the 4 sets that are on the left of my property are all older than me, and it's very, very nice. It's very, very pleasant, but I'm very concerned for the college issue because this neighborhood has really grown in the past 35 years, and I hate to see it, go downhill.
Sure, Mary. Well, the conditional use doesn't restrict it to any type of age or type of housing.
Okay. Because my husband and I, we've actually lived out here for 35 years. And we were the only people out here for about 20. And then all of a sudden, the Pine Haven apartments popped up, and then the Doolittle popped up, and some on the corner by Quick Trip popped up. And I just, with my husband being in a nursing home now because he has dementia, I'm trying to just take care of everything here the best I can. I hope you understand
Absolutely
Where I'm coming-
understand.
where I'm coming from. I guess my concern was, I get this letter in the mail and I start freaking out, and everybody's like, just go in, zoom in, and see what's happening. So, there's already a building built, and there's a bunch of lumber and shingles and everything on the property right next door to me. So, is he going to build next door as well on the west side?
So I don't necessarily understand where do you live,
She's
Mary?
across the
I
street.
live right across the street.
Okay, so right across the street, and then the
Yep.
vacant lot next to you on the, I guess that would be the east end of Doolittle, right? East side?
No, it's on the west end. It's on the
West end.
Quick Trip end. Is he going to put some more stuff up on that side as well?
What I can say is, there are preliminary plans to potentially construct additional duplexes across the street from Doolittle. However, that would require another conditional use permit similar to what's being discussed tonight.
Did you
Got
catch that?
it.
Did you catch that, Mary?
Yep, I got it. I'm just concerned. I'm here all by myself now, and just want to make sure I'm doing everything properly. So when I go see my husband in Wausau, that I can tell him what's happening, because he was very concerned over a 200 is it 200 yards? Is that how you say it?
I'm not
A
sure what you're
bound-
getting at.
A boundary or something? He was so worried about that, and I told him.
Mary, we provide notice to properties within 200 feet of the subject parcel, so that's why you received a notice of the conditional use permit. And just,
Yeah.
to address your student housing concern, really, the city's definition of family is no more than two unrelated individuals. And so the likelihood that this would be utilized for college housing, you're talking higher end duplex development. I think the costs are $1,400 to $1,500 a month in rent.
Yeah.
Probably puts it
Yeah.
out of reach for most college students. We can't regulate whether or not it's college housing or not. That's not within the purview of the commission, nor is it within the purview of the commission to start talking about the property that's directly west of your property, Mary. So,
Yeah.
no, I think what you're going to see is pretty consistent with what's there now, and that would be, older adults utilizing the
That-
property in the duplex.
That's perfect. That's perfect, because a couple of them, we've introduced ourselves to each other, and I've told them that if they ever need anything and they see me around, just don't hesitate to ask. So that makes me very happy, and I will tell Ron when I get to see him next.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Very welcome. Commissioners, we're still looking for a motion.
I would move approval of the request with the staff recommended conditions.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Haynes will second.
Oh, we'll give it to Haynes. Further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Rice.
Yeah, I guess I just have a few questions or clarifications for the director.
Okay.
And maybe we went over this a year ago, and I apologize if we did. Little bit unique development in that, again, yeah, obviously one parcel, multiple structures. I guess a couple questions related to, would it be typical for something like this to be subdivided into individual parcels normally? Are there kind of pros or cons against doing that? Again, obviously, they've fleshed out half this project already, so unlikely that maybe that we would do that retroactively, but curious about your opinions. I guess my biggest concern would be down the road if the current owner didn't want to maintain all of them as rentals and was looking to sell some of them off. It would be difficult. Obviously, they're all on one parcel. And then the second question I had was related to the road and utilities. My understanding is it's a private driveway, but there are city utilities underneath it, and does that create any complications for the city in the future?
Sure. Correct, the road is private and will remain private. The utilities underneath are built to city specifications but are also considered private. If the developer were to ever subdivide the parcel, really what you're looking at and what you're probably most concerned about would be your setbacks. You know, does it meet the setback requirements? There's 20 feet between the various duplexes. The minimum setback in that area, I believe, is 10 feet. So when we went through this last summer, we worked with the applicant to make sure that it was going to be consistent, that if down the road you wanted to split it, you could. You know, at that time, if you were to split it, my suspicion would be the city would require some type of homeowners association that would pay into the maintenance of the private roadway and the utilities as well. But I know when the developer put the utilities in last summer, they did stub in sewer and water to each of those individual duplexes on the east side of the property or on the lower side of the screen.
Great, thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner?
Nope.
Good questions.
Commissioner Arnson?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about this. Is there a traffic issue here? There's only the one access point, correct? And
Right.
I guess I'm not sure, but I think my understanding is that they generally want to have two egress access points. And is this getting to be a large enough number where that might be a consideration?
If there was more development further north of this property, I think city staff would start look at, the extension of public roadways to connect through. For better or for worse, the area north of this is where the new Hyundai dealership is currently being built. And so the likelihood of that road ever being extended further north is unlikely. You really have to think of it as a cul-de-sac, which is really what it is. There's a hammerhead turnaround at the far north end that's specifically designed for fire trucks so that they can turn around as well. I don't believe that there's a traffic concern from city staff's perspective. At the end of the day, you're going to have 8 duplexes, 16 total units. We have more units further east of here that also only have one access point. So from our perspective, there's really no traffic concern.
All right. And then, did you mention that they were looking at building an additional duplex to the north there?
There's currently one under construction on the north end of the property. But as Adam mentioned earlier, that whenever you have more than one principal structure on one parcel, it does require a conditional use permit. So this would be for the approval of essentially the next 3 duplexes.
All right, so that area to the far north there where you have your fire access and it looks like there's some stormwater ponds.
Stormwater
that would look to
and garbage. Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, good, thanks.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve with staff conditions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 4 is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from Edward Cracklow for a conditional use permit to construct an accessory building at an unaddressed parcel off of Whiting Avenue with the parcel identified in your packet, and where the principal use does not exist on the property, which is consistent with Chapter 23.04 Sub 2. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant is requesting to construct a 30 by 30 square foot detached garage on the parcel, 900 square feet in size. This would be the sole structure that would be located on the property and would be accessory to the primary residence located off of Center Street. So our zoning code says that accessory structures have to be located either on the same lot as the principal use that it's serving or directly across the street from it. And any other situations where that does not exist, an applicant would be required to obtain a conditional use permit. So ultimately, staff did review this request subject to the review standards for conditional use permit, and staff's interpretation is that the proposed, this proposal before you all tonight to construct a garage initially does not meet the intended land use plan as part of the comprehensive plan for the property. So therefore, staff would be recommending denial of the conditional use permit. And then, like I mentioned, because the proposal is not in alignment with the comprehensive plan, and then due to the proximity of where the principal use is relative to the property.
Okay, any clarifying questions before I open up that public hearing?
I guess I have one. If, yes, if staff knows, it was mentioned that there are plans to potentially build a single-family home, which would be the primary use of that property. Is there a rough timeline given for that at this juncture?
Rough timeline, no, but I know if the applicant is in attendance and can provide that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, I will declare the
I
public.
have
Oh,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
Go
I
ahead,
have
Anna.
one question. So can the applicant like pull a permit for both? And then what if they just build the garage?
Yeah, that would be permitted. You would receive one building permit for both the detached garage and the principal structure. Essentially, the building permit would remain open and essentially would remain open for 18 months. And at that point, the building inspection superintendent would have the authority to either close the permit or to extend the permit again. So let's say that applicant were to construct the garage, pull the permit for both the house and the garage, and then within that 18 months construct the house, they would be in compliance with the zoning code and the building permit itself. What we don't want to do is get into a situation where we're consistently extending that 18 months, another 12 to 18 months every time.
Right, okay.
And then what would happen if the primary residence never got built?
Well, you're in a situation then where you have created essentially a non-conforming lot, where you don't have a principal use on the lot, you only have an accessory use, which would be the detached garage. At that point, there's really not a whole lot that the city could do for enforcement. It would be probably unjustified to make the applicant tear the garage down, as an example.
Okay. Which is why staff is recommending denial in
Correct.
part, because of that
Correct.
potential. All right, any other clarifying questions from the commissioners? Then I will declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this, please step to the lectern, state your name and address for the record. Public hearing is still open. And for the third and final time, the public hearing remains open. Okay, seeing no one wishing to testify, I will declare the public hearing closed. Bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioners, the staff recommendation is to deny. What are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to deny the request per staff recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Oh, second.
Mayor Alder Nebone will second.
We actually got Commissioner Rice here.
Oh, okay,
Thank
I
you.
didn't see that, sorry.
It's a timing thing. Okay, further discussion?
Yeah, I guess I would just, reiterate, I had a very similar question to Commissioner Haynes about the timing, and it certainly seems appropriate that if the applicant is serious about building the home and they have all the documentation, whatever would be necessary for the building permit for the home, that would be appropriate to kind of go through that avenue to get the garage constructed. And I think even if they're not able to complete the project in 18 months, showing some good faith and starting the project, and then maybe have some leniency with the city at that juncture too, so.
Yeah, and we do, that would probably be the avenue that the applicant should take, would be pulling a building permit for essentially both projects. And then we try to work with folks as much as we can, extending those deadlines, working with folks, understanding that some people will do a foundation 1 month and maybe a few months later, that's when they start the framing. We really do try to work with folks as much as we can.
Okay.
Okay, the motion is to deny. If you are in favor of denial, vote yes. Yes. If you're in favor, vote yes.
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 Yes. If you are opposed, vote no. Sorry, that was a little awkward. All right, the motion is approved. Denial is the result. Item number 5 is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from Nick Bancock, representing Stratton Capital Division LLC, to modify an adopted conceptual plan for the planned development of an unaddressed parcel off Division Street North with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 23.02, Sub 4, Sub 2, Sub 10. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. As the folks here in the audience is aware, the former Kmart business has since been demolished, and the parcel that formerly housed the Kmart facility has since been split into 3 parcels, the 3 of which that's shown on your screen. Back in 2018 was the first approval that went before this commission, and that was to rezone the 3 parcels to planned development for the intent of constructing 2 apartment complexes that you see on the next slide, and then 2 single-tenant commercial buildings on the subject property. Now, a year later, that request was subsequently amended to, primarily combine those 2 single tenant commercial spaces into 1 building, and then reduce the curvature of those 2 apartment buildings to what you see currently. So the image on the right-hand portion of the screen is an updated site plan that the applicant has provided for the subject property. This shows a car wash located on the northern half of the parcel, a Cousin's Sub drive-through restaurant located on the southern half of the parcel. Now, this property is intended to be split into two parcels, which we'll talk about a little bit further during the site plan review. Our zoning code is pretty stringent on the ability for staff to approve minor amendments for an approved conceptual plan through the plan development rezoning process, specifically a 10% increase or decrease in setbacks and height and gross floor area. Now, this request would exceed that threshold, so the first item on this agenda would be to review the proposed development subject to the review standards for the plan development rezoning of the property, which we outline in the staff report, such as its applicability to city plans for the property, comprehensive plan, targeted area master plan for the Division Street corridor, and then secondly, to list the proposed deviations, which we have outlined on the screen and are included as conditions to the request. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. As you can see, Commissioners, the next 4 items are all related to this. Are there any questions at this point? Commissioner Rice?
Just if city staff could talk a little bit more about what the initial plans would have been that would have been approved in either 18 or May of 2019 as it relates to these commercial buildings?
Yeah, so in April 2018, that was what was proposed as one sole structure on the subject property that would house 2 commercial tenant spaces.
Okay.
Now, the exact tenant space wasn't concluded at that time. A year later, when that request was brought back forth again, the request was in part to split that building into 2 and then align that closer to the street to try to meet the objectives of TID 5 district, likewise the plan development requirements. Again, that was a case where the occupants of the tenant spaces were not determined at that time either.
Yeah, the 2019, as Adam said, took the 1 building, split it into 2, and then there were proposed, I think, 5 or 6 tenant spaces, essentially a strip mall style development in that area, as the Plan Commission may recall.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Then I will declare the public hearing open. Excuse me. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this request, step to the lectern, name and address for the record.
John Morrow, I'm the older person for this area. One of the concerns I had was like when I was reading the site plan, it has that the Cousin Subs and the car wash are going to share the same driveway going in and out. Is that true?
Alderperson will answer the questions after the public hearing, but we'll make note of that for now.
All right, the other concern I have is having a car wash in this area right next to the college. It seems like that the space could be used by other things besides car washes. We have a car wash on the other side of town that that's very same to the thing that we have here. Thanks.
Thank you. Public hearing remains open.
This is Nick Bancic, on behalf of Stratton Capital. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just here in case you have any questions, so I want you to know that I'm on the line and available to answer, and maybe you don't want me to answer Alderperson's question right now, but we feel that this fits in with the surrounding buildings with a McDonald's drive-through to the north, with Quick Trip in the mobile services to the west, and there's another restaurant to the west there. As far as a car wash serving college students, they have cars that need to be washed as well. So I think, that would serve them too. But I just wanted you guys to know that I was here to answer questions as they come up.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Jim, go ahead.
My name is Jim Lombs. I live at 1026 Second Street North in Stevens Point. And the reason I've come to the microphone is just to reaffirm that, by the way, I own the property just to the south of the planned development, and that's on the corner of Maria Drive and Division. And essentially, I have discussed with the city planners and also Mayor Wiesa to just affirm that there is a driveway that will be going between my building and the development. And so that driveway is essentially to the north of my building. And I just want to make that, sure, and that was my understanding. Also, and this is kind of getting ahead of things a little bit, but when the development takes place, hopefully that the area that drive is, which runs, by the way, from it runs from east to west, the west being on Division Street, and the east adjoining the apartments which are to the east of my building. And essentially, hopefully, if it can be worked out as the construction goes along, hopefully they will not have to dig up that drive and therefore be in that condition for an extended length of time, because it would just be all, dirt and mud, et cetera. And it'd just be a cleaner thing for us and for whoever goes through there, if that is possible to happen.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that's about it. I think that's it.
Thank you, sir. Alderperson Shore.
And if the person that, Mr. Bannock, if he has any thought on that, I'd appreciate hearing that at this time, if that's possible.
We will get to it after the public hearing, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much then.
Thank you.
Very good.
Now, Alderperson Shore.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, this is a site that the council's been very focused on. Views is important. We worked very closely with the developer during the pandemic to keep things, even before, as there was a problem with the original developer and financing. And I was under the impression that the development pattern was going to be more foot traffic oriented. We had a discussion recently about a parcel a little further to the north where the argument definitely could have been made that the closer you get to the traffic circle to Century, the more car oriented it's going to be. Here we're talking about down towards Maria Drive, all leading to the question I have for staff of how does this relate to the targeted area master plan?
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Public hearing remains open. Public hearing is still open. And for the third and final time, the public hearing remains open. Seeing no one else wishing to testify, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Bring it back to the committee. Director, do you want to try and touch on some of the questions, and then we'll ask Mr. Bansek to clarify the things for Mr. Lobbs, and you can maybe take Alderperson Shore's questions on
Sure.
Morrow's.
Yeah, all super insightful and definitely what city staff was expecting to hear from the public and from alders. This is obviously not exactly what the city had envisioned when this whole redevelopment area was first proposed in 2018. There's an argument to be made that is it consistent with the city's comprehensive plan that says essentially, it's zoned commercial, or it's identified future land use as commercial. Car washes and drive-through restaurants are definitely consistent with that plan. Is it consistent with the targeted area master plan? Not so much. The plan, as folks might recall, really is between the roundabout on the north side and Maria Drive is where you've got more auto-centric, but as you get closer to Maria Drive, it really starts to funnel. And then from Maria Drive south, serves as a quasi entrance into the downtown area where you've got buildings that are closer to the street. You've got more street activity. So as it relates to future planning, we do require that the applicant is to install sidewalks along Division Street, so there is some additional pedestrian accommodations that are being provided. I will say this, that we've ran into this in the past where the city may not be happy with the use, but if the use is consistent with the city's zoning code, we are limited in what we can do in terms of approving or denying a specific use. Car washes and restaurants are permitted or conditional uses within the zoning code. So we did work with the developer to identify ways to make this more pedestrian friendly, adding the sidewalk along Division Street, doing some really enhanced landscaping along Division Street as well was critically important as part of that. I think I'll say what I said about the Caribou Coffee argument was, is it the highest and best use for the property? Probably not, but unfortunately our hands are relatively tied with changes in state law and whether or not we can deny something subjectively. We've got to take a pretty objective look at this. You can add conditions to the proposed development. You could try to argue that it should be closer to the street. You could ask for even more enhanced landscaping, but as it relates to the use itself, I think we're pretty limited. So that's what I got about that. I know Adam's worked with the developer on addressing Mr. Lobb's concerns. I believe we do have a condition in there that there's a ingress-egress easement provided between the Cousin Subs parcel and Mr. Lobb's parcel. So that was addressed. Thanks, Mr. Lobbs, for coming in and talking to city staff about that a number of times. I think, what else did we have here?
I think that was it.
Oh, and then the shared driveway, and I know Nick is also on and could address any other questions.
And I'm going to turn it over to Nick now to address Mr. Lobb's concerns. Nick?
Yeah, so as far as, I think one alderperson, the first one, asked about the driveways. So I want to answer that one first. So there is a driveway off of Division on the south, in the southwest corner there, yep. That is existing, and we intend to keep that, which also goes with the property to the south in his question on maintaining the driveway. So we plan to keep that, and it will connect to the east side where there is a shared easement with those apartments and the parking there. And then on the north end, there is an existing driveway that serves that whole development to the north and to the east. So all that will be kept. The car wash, the northern developed piece there, will have two accesses off of the east side shared access, and Cousins will have access from Division Street and from the east side shared access. So we are not creating any new driveways on Division Street. And then as far as maintaining that driveway on the north side, yeah, the one where your mouse is, I can't guarantee we're gonna keep it open the whole time, but we do need to do a little bit of grading in there, but I can certainly, talk to the developer and tell them, hey, let's try to minimize the amount of time that is disturbed, whether that is wait till the end of the project to finish that, or whether we do that up front and restore it so it's in working order. But we do have some storm sewer that needs to go through there, and there will be some regrading going on. But the intent is when it's done, he will have the same access that he currently does.
Thank you very much, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Adam to make sure that we share the contact information between Mr. Lobbs and yourself, so you can work better and more coordinated on that effort. Okay. Yes, sir.
Is it a full-service car wash or drive-through car wash?
Yeah, I believe it's going to be drive-through.
All right, so.
You mean like
there
the
won't be attendance
70s
and
car
things?
wash things?
Yeah.
I don't think they do that anymore.
All right.
It is a full drive-through car wash where you just pull your car in and it goes on a belt and it takes you through. And then on the east side, there are spots where there's free vacuums for people to use.
Yeah, basically what they do on the south side. I wouldn't call those attendants, they pre-hose some of the stuff,
right.
but that was about it. Everything else is automated.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I was thinking Madison Octopus car wash type thing. They don't do that anymore, huh?
No, not too much. All right, I do need a motion. All right, I'm going to move approval. Now I need a second.
I'll second it just to get to the
All
floor.
right, we got Cooper to second. Discussion.
I kind of echo what Alder Morrow said, that it's a consistent use. I get it. I don't think it's the highest and best use for that area at all, but
I concur.
That's what it is. I'm sure it'll look nice. The plans look nice, but
Yeah, I'd like to see something that might be a little more appropriate for the area, but they are consistent with what we have chosen to be in that zoning district. Okay. All those in favor?
No, Mayor, I have a question. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't see it, sorry.
What kind of lighting is there going to be? I mean, is this going to be lit up like a, I don't know, circus tent or something?
It will not be like a circus tent. However, Alderperson, I think that concern might be more appropriate for the conditional use. So if you wanted to put a condition on there requiring downlighting or specific lumen restrictions, I think that would be the place to do that, and I'll defer to Adam.
Yeah, what I can say about that is, the applicant has provided some photometric plans of the neighboring Tommy's Car Wash development up in Wausau, and I believe the other one was in Schofield. But as a condition to the site plan review, staff is requesting that the applicant conduct or produce a photometric plan for this parcel specifically to make sure that the light intensity that's proposed won't spill over onto the roadway and onto adjoining lots as well.
Well, just thinking about the fact that we're a high flyer bird city, lighting at night during bird migrations can be devastating for some birds. So if there's some way to keep the lights kind of pointed down, more efficient, that would be nice. So, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, now, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 6 is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from Nick Bancic, representing Stratton Capital Division LLC for a conditional use permit to operate a car wash facility on an unaddressed parcel off Division Street North with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 23.02, Sub 2, Sub D, Sub 3, Sub K. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So as we discussed before, the property is zone plan development, and as we'll discuss in the next 2 agenda items, is located within the TID 5 overlay district. So within the TID 5 overlay district, the use requirements are based on what's allowed by right or conditionally approved in the B4 commercial district. In the B4 commercial district, car washes are considered a conditional use, thus the reason for this specific agenda item. So some of the areas that staff took a look at regarding car washes specifically really hone in on, what are some negative externalities that could come across. One of which is sight from the public right away. And as the director mentioned, we made sure that there is sufficient landscaping around the perimeter of both properties to make sure that that's adequately screened to the best of our ability. Second, with light, as we discussed during the last agenda item, staff is requesting a photometric plan to make sure that there won't be any high-intensity light that's spilling over onto adjoining properties. And the last of which more so relates to parking, to noise. Similar to other car wash approvals that this commission has reviewed, most recently the Quick Trip car wash off of Maria Drive, there is a time limit as to when that car wash can be in operation each day. And so as a condition to this approval, staff would be requesting that the car wash shall not be in operation during the hours of 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Daily. So with that, I'd be happy to take any comments, questions folks may have.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions before I open the public hearing? Okay, we'll declare the public hearing open. Public hearing remains open. And for the third and final time, the public hearing is open. Okay, hearing no one wishing to speak, I will declare the public hearing closed. Bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioners, what are your thoughts or wishes?
Just real quick, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
One thing, just hearing from Commissioner Nebo's comments, it could be advantageous to add a third condition that any lighting be downward directed night sky friendly.
Actually, that was going to be part of my recommendation and consistent with Alder Nebone, to make it a condition that that photometric plan be submitted with the emphasis on downlighting.
Yep.
So I will make that motion to amend if there's a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by
Second.
Rice. Okay, we are only talking about the amended condition, that one item requiring a photometric plan be submitted by staff and approved with an emphasis on downlighting. Are there any comments relating to that?
I don't think that we're in the amendment. There wasn't a motion made for the
You're right.
approval.
You're right. We haven't done that yet. So, motion to the original request first. Thank you for catching that.
Can I make a motion and just add that? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That is in the
that seems
condition.
appropriate.
Yeah, I
So,
will-
so move approval with the added condition.
That's what I will do that.
Understood. And Alder Nebone, will you second that one?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve with the additional condition. That makes it a lot easier. Any discussion there? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 7 is a public hearing and subsequent action on the same request for Stratton Capital for a conditional use permit to construct 2 principal structures using conditional street setback requirements of the tax incremental financing district number 5 on an unaddressed parcel off Division Street North with the parcel identified in our packet, consistent with chapter 23.02, sub 2, sub F, sub 5, sub A. That's a mouthful, Adam.
It is. Thank you, Mayor. So as I mentioned during the last agenda item, this property also is located within the tax incremental financing district number 5. And within TID 5, there are additional performance standards that needs to be met for any sort of development. One of which is unique for this request is that there's not only minimum setback requirements off the street, but also maximum setbacks, specifically 10 feet as the maximum. However, our zoning code does allow for folks who seek to exceed that 10-foot setback requirement to obtain a conditional use permit via Plan Commission and Common Council approval. So naturally, the intent of this request, of this requirement, is to make sure that any proposed structures are more closely aligned to the street to ensure that essentially the front face of the building matches where the property line is to the best of your ability. So, given the proposed uses more auto-centric in nature, staff does recognize that it would be a little bit more difficult to meet that 10-foot setback requirement. Now, given that the proposed setback for the car wash is 53 feet, 69 feet for the restaurant, staff did make a concerted effort, like we mentioned before, to ensure that additional landscaping is met to try to lessen that distance between the front of the building and the street. So staff would recommend approval and be happy to take any of your questions.
Okay, any questions or clarifying questions rather from the commissioners? And then I will open up the public hearing. Public hearing is now open on this request. Anyone wishing to offer testimony, step to the lectern, please, or signify somehow on Zoom that you wish to testify. Public hearing remains open. Yes, sir.
John Morrow, I'm the alderperson for this area. I still have some concerns about this, and I'm looking forward to talk with Nick about this.
Okay, thank you. Public hearing remains open. Public hearing is still open. And for the third and final time, the public hearing remains open. Seeing no one else wishing to testify, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve the request per
Staff.
recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Seconded by Rice. Discussion.
So this might be your opportunity to address some of the concerns that have been brought up with whether or not this is a consistent use with the targeted area master plan. You could always require that they, or not really require, but deny the conditional use permit for the greater than 10-foot setback. That would be something I think we could stand behind if you were to choose to deny it. Pushing the car wash closer to the street, definitely starts framing in Division Street itself, and that's been an objective that we've had. Just remember, across the street, you've got commercial use Quick Trip, Tokyo Steakhouse, that are further setback, Quick Trip being a fairly new building. So, we've been through this before with the 10-foot setback. Taco John's and Burger King may, bring back some memories you don't really want to think about, but it's something that we've been through before with this area. The car wash, definitely, I think if you wanted to make that a 10-foot setback, you could. The drive-through restaurant becomes more challenging just because we do require that anything that's drive-through has to circulate within the lot itself. So you can't have access off of Division Street and then you loop back around and go directly off of Division Street through the drive-through. You've got to loop, if you will, on the lot itself. That's a requirement of our zoning code. So again, staff's recommendation is approval, but if you were to choose to deny, you'd be pushing at least that car wash or forcing the engineers to look at whether or not they can make that setback work. Again, the enhanced landscaping, the addition of the sidewalk, may be a door for you to approve as well. So,
Okay, thank you.
just giving you all the options.
All right. Any questions on the motion?
Just a quick question. Does city staff know roughly what the building directly to the south, what that setback is?
That would be Mr. Lobb's building, the one
That's
down here?
correct.
Maybe 10 feet closer to the road than the proposed cousin subs. Just eyeballing it.
Yeah, not dissimilar.
Right.
And, you've got to remember that when we did the approval for the two strip mall developments, those had a further setback than 10 feet as well. That was another thing that we talked about internally. I mean, we kicked this project around a lot before we brought it to the public's eye, just because staff had some initial concerns. Obviously, if you take that into consideration, you did have a drive aisle. You had parking in the front of the building along Division Street for what was previously proposed.
Okay,
This is Nick with.
Yes, sir.
Martin Capital. Am I allowed to speak?
absolutely, go ahead.
I just want to clarify something on the car wash building, because that seems like a little more of a concern. There is a pay canopy on the west side of the building that is a structure that is attached to the building, and that is 20 feet from the lot line on Division Street. So if that makes you feel better about it being closer to the property line than whatever was listed in that 53 feet.
Understood. Thank you. Any other questions?
I guess if I
Go
could just
ahead.
make a comment. Ideally, I think we'd see these parcels kind of transition towards that more pedestrian setting that we're looking for even farther to the south. And but what they're proposing here, to me, seems really entirely consistent with what's already up there. And I don't know if we're gonna significantly change that, so, I just make the comment, yep.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
mean, that's a good point, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, is that area between Maria Drive and the North Roundabout really serves as the funnel where you transition from the more highway style of development down to a more pedestrian-friendly development, really south of Maria. And again, we are getting there. We've got the Point Motel, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's gone. But that'll be a apartment project, mixed-use project, done by the same developer that's proposing the car wash and the Cousin Subs. You've got a number of properties along Division Street, south of Maria to essentially Main Clark that are closer to the street that really service that funnel to slow traffic down. So, I mean, this is kind of one of those weird in-between parcels where, yeah, it could go either way. You could have something that's closer to the street, or you could have something that's more proposed to what we have now.
By weird in between, you mean transitional?
Transitional, yeah. It's actually a planning term, weird in between. So.
I remember that. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Item number 8 is a request from Nick Bancic, representing Stratton Capital Division, for a site plan review to construct 2 principal structures on an unaddressed parcel off of Division Street North, with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 23.02, Sub 2, Sub F, Sub 5, Sub B. Adam, one more time.
One more time. So as I mentioned before, our zoning code places a little bit more stringent requirements for development within the TID 5 district. One of those requirements is that before any development can ensue, there has to be a site plan review that's reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission. So we discussed some of the site components for both the car wash and the restaurant parcels. Some of the items that I'll mention, however, is, first off, that the subject property is proposed to be split into 2 parcels. Staff did review the proposed lot split to make sure that lot width, lot area, what the proposed setbacks are for both structures, that would be in alignment with the zoning code requirements. Other items, sidewalks being required along Division Street North. Landscaping plan has been submitted and reviewed by city staff. Signage requests, the access agreement that the director mentioned before being a requirement for the shared driveway and between the restaurant and Mr. Lobbs' property. So, the conditions shown on the screen in the packet, staff feels goes at the heart of the requirements for development for both of these parcels, and would recommend approval. Be happy to take any of your questions too.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? No public hearing on this one. Okay, then I'll need a motion.
I will move approval of the request with all of the staff recommended conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Rice. Now, discussion. Comments from the audience?
I have one question. This is Haynes.
Yep.
Is there any bike parking on the cousin side of this?
That is a requirement, is it not?
Not for this requirement specifically.
Okay.
For this development specifically. So what our zoning code states is that if 20 or more parking stalls are provided for
Okay.
commercial use like this, bicycle parking is required. Both lots provide 19 parking stalls, so that the applicant would be exempt from that requirement.
Okay, but we can make it a condition if we needed to.
Correct.
Or wanted to.
Correct.
Commissioner Haynes?
Yes, I would like to see on number 14 add appropriate number of bike parking. I don't know what that means, but I'll let Ryan and Adam figure that out.
I think the minimum required is 4, 2 or 4. So we
4
could,
to 6.
we could do
Staff
something
can work
with
on that. And I'll second that, Commissioner. Discussion only on the additional condition now.
I'm just not sure we should, it's not required. I think if the applicant wants to put the bike parking, which is probably in their interest at the restaurant, they could, but I don't think that should be a condition.
Okay. Any other comments? Nick, I saw you take yourself off of mute. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I think, I don't think we have an issue with adding the bike parking for the cousin sub. I think that would make sense as the development. And I just want to point out, we didn't specifically go with 19 stalls, so we didn't have to do bike parking. That was just a coincidence. As far as the car wash, unless it was an employee that rode their bike to work, I don't know that we have a use for bike parking for the car wash.
Understood.
Yeah, I was only suggesting for cousins.
Okay, and I don't think that's an issue. We would probably do that in our own interest anyways.
Understood. Okay, we're only voting on the amendment at this point. If you, go ahead.
So is the amendment for both developments?
No,
It's not.
the amendment is for only the cousin subs, and to work with staff on whatever that minimum is, 2, 4, 6. Okay? If you are, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now the original request as amended. Any further discussion on that? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 9 is a request from Brooke Claysmith, representing St. Michael's Hospital of Stevens Point, for a sign variance to install a wall sign exceeding the maximum requirement at 900 Illinois Avenue, which is consistent with Chapter 25.14.
Thank you,
Adam?
Mayor. So as the commission may be aware, Spirus came into an agreement with Ascension to retain ownership of a few hospitals in north central Wisconsin, one of which being St. Michael's Hospital. Since that ownership transfer, the applicant representing the hospital has been working with city staff on updating all Spirus signage on the hospital grounds and in the adjoining parking lot. Now, most of the directional signage can be approved internally. However, the applicant is requesting to replace the wall signage on the north face of the building as shown on the screen. The proposed sign would be a little over 218 square feet in size. This property being zoned R5 allows wall signage up to 32 square feet in height and size. So ultimately, staff did review the request subject to the review standards for issuing a variance and believes that the proposed signage would meet the intent of the hospital of better identifying for folks traveling along the Stanley Street Highway 66 corridor, and would recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I will move approval of the request with the staff recommended conditions.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooper. Seconded by Arnson. Now, discussion. Comments from the audience?
No, I just think.
Oh, go ahead.
It's quite a setback, so the larger sign kind of makes sense, just to make it be seen. That's the intent of this, right? Because otherwise, it's pretty well distant from
Right.
roadways. Okay.
Okay, once again, any comments from the audience or Zoom?
Yeah, this is Matthew Waller with Graphic House Sign Company representing Aspirus. I appreciate the approval from Adam, or the recommendation. But yes, the goal of this sign is really just to help identify the main entrance side, which is the north elevation of the building. Right now, there is 3 current signs on the building on the north face, one with the logo, and then 2 additional signs that read the St. Michael's Hospital. The 2 smaller signs that read St. Michael's Hospital will be coming down. There is no plans to replace those at this time. So the main sign on the entire building property would be this sign to help identify the hospital. Mainly, again, to identify the entrance point for the hospital. And that's the reason for the sizing requirements. Obviously, 32 square feet is not going to be that large and that visible. So that is the reason for this recommendation. So I appreciate any feedback or approvals on this project.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that's approved. Item number 10 is a request from Darren Miller for an exception to the driveway requirements at 1910 Monroe Street with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 23.01, Sub 15, Sub I, Sub 3, Sub K. Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. So a few months ago, city staff observed a concrete parking pad that was constructed in the front of the house, directly abutting Monroe Street. This concrete pad was constructed without a permit and does not meet several zoning code requirements. So as such, staff went through the proper protocol of sending the property owner the non-compliance letter and advising them of their options as to how to proceed forward. Either obtaining a driveway exception, what's being requested tonight, to remove the concrete pad entirely, or do property line adjustments to at least make it make the concrete pad more into compliance. Ultimately, based on the review standards that's outlined in the zoning code, staff would recommend denial for 3 key reasons. First of which, a literal application of the zoning code would not result in a practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship for the property. 2 reasons why staff felt that that reason would not be met for the driveway exception. First of which, that a parking area can be constructed on the parking lot on the subject property, which is shown on the right image on the screen. Second of which is that since this was created without a building permit, staff would classify this as a self-created hardship, which our zoning code pretty clearly identifies as a reason for which a variance should not be granted. Second, the granting of the requested exception would be materially detrimental to the property owners in the vicinity. Staff felt that this would not be a reasonable reason, given that the adjoining property to the west, while co-owned by one of the owners of the property, there is fencing along the east lot line and the southern lot line abutting this subject property that with this continued allowance of the concrete pad would pose some violations with the city's clear view requirements, essentially folks being able to sufficiently see oncoming traffic when they're pulling out of the parking area. And then lastly, are the unique conditions tied to the property. While this is considered a corner lot, while the square footage of the lot is a little bit less than what's required for our zoning code, the setbacks are met not within the R3 district, but within the traditional neighborhood overlay district. So Even though this is a corner lot, staff feels that that by itself does not warrant this property being unique. So as such, staff would recommend denial.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
Yeah, just bottom line is that had this been introduced up front, you still wouldn't recommend doing it. There's other ways to doing it besides the fact that it's already done.
Correct. If the applicant would have came before staff requesting, this specifically what was done, staff would deny that request and work with them to find other means to provide off-street parking.
Okay, a workable alternative.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? Then I would need a motion.
I make a motion to deny the exception request per staff recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Kneebone will second.
Seconded by Kneebone. Discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of denial signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that, the denial is approved. Item number 11 is the monthly report for September 2021. Director Kanoski.
Thank you. So you should have received a copy of this month's monthly report. Major item to note likely would be for the Hyundai dealership. We did issue the building permit for that with a declared value of $3.2 million. Again, our numbers have been consistently lower than they historically have in the last few years. We had really some exceptional years, and I think we've all identified COVID really being the cause for some of our down net new constructions. So more consistent with 2018, staff isn't concerned. We've got a number of projects in the hopper for 2022 and 2023. A number of single-family homes that were issued as well on Washington Avenue. The property on Prairie Street, F and F only, means footings and foundation only. So we should see a full building permit being issued in the coming weeks for that. So,
Thank you, Director. Any comments on the Director's report? Okay, with that, our agenda is exhausted and.
Nope. We just have the
I'm
monthly
sorry.
report. Now we
Go down to the Director's report. My fault.
My director's report's included. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Now, any questions for the Director on the report? And now our agenda is exhausted, and we are adjourned at, I've got about 7:09. Thank you.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.